Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Out in the Wild with AV Perkins. It's me, AV Perkins. I would like to call myself the mistress of the wilderness. No, I don't think that sounds as good as I thought it was in this moment. But I'm going to give you guys an update before I go into what we're talking about today. Update with me. It's been a couple of days and I'm officially a podcaster. I don't know how I feel about this because my whole shtick, my whole thing is this is all in my air quotes, by accident, well, there's no such thing as accidents, but you know, not necessarily a plan. And yeah, so my update. Hmm what's been going on with me this week? It's been a lot of Pilates, I have some things I need to handle like medically. So I'm preparing for that. I have to go to like the stomach doctor. Like I'm okay, but I just want to make sure I'm in my peak physical health before I do that. So that's kind of like my most recent update with me. What else is going on? I have I've been outside before. I was kind of like low key in hibernation not over the summer, but over like the last couple of months, I haven't been outside as much. I did get to catch up with some friends, which has been really fun and exciting. Also, just getting over a lot of hangups I might have been having. And I think this podcast is helping me to do so because, as I mentioned in the previous episode, talking to people but not seeing anyone is new for me. Talking to people and not directly like interacting with them is also new and an interesting space for me to be in. So I have to look at myself or sometimes kind of like zone out. Right now I'm looking at my watch, but not looking at the time, like literally looking at the design of the watch. So just as this podcast is about all of us being better, this includes me. I'm a part of everyone, right? And I'm a part of the same demographic that I do want to always level up and be better. And when I say demographic, it's not necessarily nothing very specific. It's just, the human race. I think we all can be better. We all can do things that can elevate us as humans. So that brings me to why I owe Josh Hartnett an apology. Now, this may sound very random because when's the last time you heard about Josh Hartnett? And for those of you who do not know who Josh Hartnett is, he is an actor, definitely was on his 90s heartthrob flow in the night. Well, more so 90s, early 2000s. He was in the film Black Hawk Down, Pearl Harbor. What was that other movie? Was it 40 Days of Night? I think The Faculty. Was he in The Faculty? If he was in The Faculty, please let me know in the chat. Also, in the chat, let me know who was your 90s crush because he was definitely one of mine in the list of my 90s like heartthrob crushes. Method Man being the number one person, but he's still my crush today. So is that even a 90s crush or is it like my entire life crush? Another person I had a crush on as a little youth was, oh my gosh, I forgot his name. But if you remember the show New York Undercover, it used to come on Fox on Thursday nights after Martin and Living Single. Detective Torres. Detective Torres, I think, what is his name? I think Michael DiLorenzo. I believe that was his name. Or his name because he's alive, thankfully. Uh, that was definitely one of my childhood crushes as well. So as you guys are saying, putting your childhood crush in the chat, I'm going to continue to talk about why I owe Josh Hartnett an apology. In my out in the wild adventure, sometimes I'm not necessarily outside. Sometimes it literally consists of me doing intense rabbit hole Googling. For some reason, I just pick people and I'm like, what are they doing? What are they up to? Why aren't they on my television all the time or, in the movies or wherever, music, wherever? And my mind kind of like thought about Josh Hartnett because I was like, he had so much promise. Not saying that he doesn't have promise, but it was kind of like really like peak heartthrob, dream deferred type of actor, right? And I was like, wow, why is he not, like, why don't we see more of him? So then I did my Googles between Wikipedia and just regular Googling, like, what is Josh Hartnett up to now? So I found this article, right? I found this article of why he essentially left Hollywood. I'm going to read some of it to you, and then I'm going to just like share my thoughts about that. And then we'll have some Q&A, and then we'll head out of here because, I got things to do. So this is from The Guardian. Josh Hartnett. I didn't want to be swallowed up. Actor Josh Hartnett on swapping Hollywood for Hampshire. On track for megastardom, the actor turned down the part of Superman twice and turned his back on Hollywood. Now living in rural Hampshire, he talks about choosing fulfilling projects, his hippie childhood, the perils of stalkers, and the fun of owning goats. Every morning, as soon as the actor Josh Hartnett wakes up in his home in the Hampshire countryside, there are mouths to be fed. Most obviously, those of his 4 young children, but also the dog, several guinea pigs, several more chickens, and a herd of small goats. The goats, Hartnett notes, are his favorites. That's kind of messed up. Like, why are the goats your favorite and not your children? But neither here nor there. Everyone loves a good goat, right? They're the sweetest animals on the planet, he says over Zoom. From his home, they're like dogs. They would live in the house if they could. In fact, I've seen many people having their goats in the house with diapers on, but we felt that was kind of cruel. Hartnett and his wife, British actress Tamsin Egerton, spent locked down there. For years, they've been living ping pong existence between the UK and the US, and with their third child on the way, they decided to stay in Hampshire, and Hartnett has become a fixture in the local village life ever since. Unlike when he was in New York or LA, where people would only want to talk about your career, he says here nobody cares, which is how he likes it. He's also in the UK on a marriage visa, which only means he could be out of the country for work 180 days out of the year, or roughly one movie, which suits him just fine. Okay, the article kind of goes on and on and on about how he left Hollywood and he wanted a quieter life. But the title is really what struck me. He didn't want to be swallowed up. So imagine he is this young, hot actor, and everything that's going on in Hollywood now, he kind of really got out of Dodge. But when has Hollywood never not been weird? Neither here nor there. But he didn't want to be swallowed up. He did not feel like he wanted to be consumed. And that struck such a chord with me because as a creative myself, I haven't been in any movies, well, blockbuster movies. I was an extra once in this film that I've never seen, but it was produced by Oprah. You can check my IMDb. I promise I'm not lying. But I felt him when he said that. Like, he did not want to be swallowed up. And I've been debating where is the happy medium between creativity, wanting to share and express your creativity, being consumed, and compensation, right? Many creatives don't, especially now because we have social media. The idea of being a starving artist is very old. Like, you don't want to be a starving artist. You don't want to just give because you're giving and you just love the art. Yes, you do love the art. You do love to express yourself, but you should be able to be compensated appropriately. But then your creativity, to express your creativity, unless you are someone who wants to be creative, but they don't share it. If you don't share it, what's the word I'm looking for? Is it helping you? Like, being expressive and sharing it with others, it's with intention for people to consume. Like a chef, would they just cook and no one would eat? An artist, would they just paint and no one would watch? Or would no one ever see it? And although you can do those things, you can just cook and no one can eat it, or you can make a dance, you can do choreography and no one sees it. But doesn't it go hand in hand? Don't you want to express yourself? Right? And then when you're expressing yourself, people have to consume it. And then where does the line stop from being consumed and being overconsumed, right? Like you're just sharing, you're caring and sharing your art with others. And when compensation comes in there, it becomes a job. So as I'm reading this about Josh Hartnett, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, I feel like we're like here, right? And meanwhile, I'm thinking, why aren't you making more movies? You should, or you should have, or whatever you do. But now he only makes them once a year. And, I'm not watching this man's pockets, but he has 4 children. So someone is making some money somewhere to feed them. But I always really, it kind of wrestles with me. How do I, me as an AV, and especially with this new venture that I have now with this podcast, how am I balancing the three? Am I even balancing the three? What does the balance look like? Is it breaks or is it inconsistency? Because I always beat myself up that I'm not being consistent. Even on my vision board, I have a vision board that I made during Hurricane Sandy. So that's over 10 years ago that I made this vision board. And I call it my lifetime vision board. And I divided it up in quadrants, like areas of my life that I would like to always grow and improve upon, because I really did like a lot of meditating before I created this vision board. And as I'm looking at it now, like one part says, my spirit, my health, my wealth, and, my mind, right? And the theme of the vision board is complete, consistent commitment. So I thought, as I created this vision board, hey, if I do everything that's on this board completely, consistently, and if I'm committed to it completely and consistently, things will improve and things will go. I will achieve everything that I want. But being consistent, that is something I struggle with. And is that a part of my charm? Is that a part of my quirks? Is that a part of, like, if you struggle with consistency, what is actually consistent? And am I copying please right now? For those of you who don't know what copying please are, it's essentially excuses. Like, why aren't you consistent? Like, should I set to a time and a date? And where does the line fall between I need a break and I can pick and choose my projects, or I can pick and choose when this no longer serves me, with consistency? So for like things in my life, for instance, I started out in the film industry. I think I mentioned that in the last episode. But yeah, I started out in the film industry. I went to school for film. So I understand the grit and the grind of the filmmaking process and doing those things. Not on Josh's level, because I was behind the scenes, but it's still the grind nonetheless. At one point, I decided, I didn't think it was sustainable for the life I wanted to eventually live. Like, working in the art department is glorified construction. So after a while, it gets hard on your body. That doesn't mean it's not fun. That doesn't mean I didn't have a great time. But I felt like, I need to do other things. And, getting suggestions from others, they always said, hey, Avi, you belong in front of the camera. I'm like, all right, I'm going to take that into consideration. But I did start my blog, Avi Does What. And I did that for a number of years. And then I felt like doing DIY wasn't enough. Like, just doing it. Like, yes, I'm making crafts. Yes, I'm making projects. Yes, people are resonating with it. But is it completely fulfilling me? And is it like a constant chase of what's fulfilling you? Like, do these things just fulfill you for a short period of time? And if you stop, does that mean you're inconsistent? I don't know. And these are just things I think about. These are just things that I wonder about as I continue to find the balance of being creative and sharing my creativity. And I don't want to share my creativity for free, because who has time for that? I don't have time to be broke. You know what I mean? So doing that, but then also not being consumed to the point of, you can't recognize yourself. You know, I think a lot of artists, especially the ones that become like recluse, like later on, let's say, well, I can't even say Kanye is recluse. He's just crazy. But it's such a fine line. So when you're being consumed, right? There's times for me, and this goes into, and this we could talk about this on another episode, but I I have this love-hate relationship with love languages. And it ties into being consumed momentarily, right? So for those of you who are not familiar with love languages, there's what quality time, physical touch, words of affirmation, acts of service, and gifts. And I was having a conversation with someone recently about this. This time I was out in the wild. We're having a conversation about love languages. And, as a woman, sometimes saying that you like gifts and or acts of service kind of gets a bad rap. But for me, being in my air quotes, entertaining person or a public figure, words of affirmation, you get it all the time. And I don't take it for granted. I definitely appreciate all of my subscribers, people who have been following every iteration of myself from film, from when I had my candle business, from AV Does What, University of Dope, all of the things, right? Or even me just talking about my thoughts, random thoughts on Facebook and social media and things of that nature. I appreciate everyone who's ever supported me and given me words of encouragement. But I get that in abundance. I get that in abundance. And also, I've met a lot of people who weren't necessarily telling the truth, or they either didn't tell the truth, or when they were upset, they kind of like took it all back. And I'm like, this is weird. I thought I was an amazing person. Wow. And that usually happens from social media, not necessarily my private life, which is good. But, you kind of take it with a grain of salt when you become these people who create for the masses, right? So when I come to the internet, it's a job. You are consuming my thoughts. You are consuming what I have to say. And it works. And then sometimes it doesn't work. And people kind of just like pick at you until there's nothing left. Right. And I understand why some artists don't want to be swallowed up like Josh. Right. And as we're continuing talking in this conversation, as we are continuing about the love languages, I share my thoughts about the other ones. Physical touch is fine. I love a good hug. Um, but gifts and acts of service, more often than not, they are for someone to give me a gift. I'm not in their physical presence. It's something like, hey, AV, I thought of you out when they're out in the wild and they're out doing whatever it is that they're doing. And they thought of me to bring something back. And I think that's so powerful. And I wonder if other artists feel like that. Like, is it just a me thing? Like, if someone who really paints really, really well, they are very much accustomed to some people saying that they paint very, very well. But what if you brought them really nice paintbrushes? Like, how would they feel? You know? And of course, I would love any artist that is in the chat to chime in. If you're watching this live or you're listening live, please chime in to say how you feel about, you know, the love languages. Do you prefer physical touch? Do you prefer words of affirmation? Do you prefer acts of service? Like, is sharing someone's show, or sharing, like, let's say someone's having an art show, since we're talking about, painters and artists of that nature. If someone was saying like, hey, I'm going to share the invite to someone to come to your art premiere, like, is that an act of service? That I don't know, but you can let me know in the comments below. But yeah, all of that to say is that I owe Josh Hartnett an apology. He got out of Dodge and he does his movies on his own terms, and still, he's still fine. I Googled him. He still looks good. So, shout outs to him on that one. And shout outs to all the other artists that decide, this no longer serves me, or I can pivot this in a different way. I can do the art on my own terms. I can get the compensation. I can get to be able to express myself creatively. I can allow you to consume my art carefully and not feel overly picked at, because in my mind, the visual is Thanksgiving and the turkey. People just pick at the turkey and leave it there for to kind of like be dried out. More often than not, turkey's already dry, but whatever. Debate, argue with your mom about if their turkey is good or not. But yeah, the turkey is dry, the turkey has been picked over, and no one pays any mind to Thanksgiving turkey until Thanksgiving the next year. Like, when's the last time you bought a turkey and ate it? Exactly, you haven't. So yeah, shout outs to him for finding that balance. And sometimes you really just got to get out of Dodge if that's what serves you, doing what you need to run up your bag and make sure your family is secure and, financially sound. And then just making your creativity on your terms. I'm still trying to figure out my own balance because I was not a 90s heartthrob and created movies and create that buffer to do these other things. But we're just kind of learning this all together at once. So those are my thoughts for today. Josh Hartnett, if you are listening to this, make sure y'all share it with him. I owe you an apology. You can do whatever you want, just like you and I can. So I don't know when I'm going live again because I don't have uh, a set time or structure with this. These are just the musings of my mind. But if you would like to continue listening to the musings of my mind, make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I will see you out in the wild. Peace out.